Today I have a cute little owl card, and it's called Hoot Hoot Hooray. Could be used for several different occasions, but I've done an iris folding technique here with a template I'm going to use. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned to see how I made this card. Today I'll be using a sort of eclectic collection of items. I have the Kindred Spirits double-sided paper pack, the matching Kindred Spirits and Bellies, a tan suede paper, this is 8.5 by 11, Teresa's Pentagon iris folding template, a cute little Hoot Hoot owl stamp set, and pink jewel dazzles. With that, let's get started. Alright, so first I have my 6.5 inch by 5 inch blank white card. I'm actually going to set that aside, and I also cut just a piece of plain white cardstock to fit the front of my card. So that fits exactly. So just a plain white piece of cardstock, and this is going to be for the iris folding portion of my card, and I'm going to show you how I do iris folding. It's just a little bit different than the instructions on here, but I find it to be the easiest way for me. So my plain white cardstock, and I'm going to cover this with this green pattern paper. Now that I've got this covered, I can trace my house onto the center of it. I'm going to go ahead and do that on the back. And then I'm just going to trace the inner shape. I'm going to add the roof in this base line later. So go ahead and center that, trace it with a pencil, and then cut it out. Alright, now that I got my hole cut out, I'm going to turn this over and place it on the template. Let me get another piece of paper so you can see better. There we go. So I'm just going to place it on the template. The traditional thing is to put the center in the middle, but you can also kind of shift it around if you like. If you want it near the top, near a corner, it's your choice. I'm going to keep it in the middle today. So I'm just going to secure this to the template with a little bit of tape, and that's going to come off later. Now to cut the strips for the iris folding. In the instructions it says to cut 1 inch by 3.5 inch strips. What I like to do is go ahead and cut 12-inch long strips, just a couple of each color, and that way I can trim each piece to fit the shape. And the reason I do that is because there's a lot of different lengths here. So if you have only 3.5 inch strips, you're going to end up cutting some and leaving some whole. And so what I like to do is start with the full 12-inch length and just trim one by one each of the different lengths that I need to cover these areas. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my 12-inch long by 1 inch wide strips. I'm going to cut 2 of each of my 5 chosen papers, and then I'm going to proceed with building my iris. So I actually cut mine 3/4 of an inch. I thought that 1 inch was a little too thick for me. So these are the 5 papers I've chosen: the brown dot, pink, brown floral, purple, and green floral. And these are 2 of them are actually the same paper. This one is the purple on the back, and this one is the pink on the back. And you don't have to have exactly 12-inch strips. Like, I just used scraps of paper to make my strips. It doesn't really matter the length, because you are going to trim them to size anyway. So now what I'm going to do is score and fold along the length of each of my strips, and I'm going to measure about 1/4 inch in from one edge, and I'm going to do that on the back of my strips. About 1/4 of an inch. Even narrower is fine, as long as you just have that nice sharp fold. So I'm going to take the back of my craft knife and just run it along my ruler and simply fold along that score line and you just do that for all of the strips, and I'll come back when I'm done folding. Alright, so I've got my strips all folded and ready to go. So I'm going to move to my template now. Before I begin, I like to prep a lot of little pieces of tape because that's what you're going to need for each of these little strips. So just regular Scotch tape is fine, but I like to kind of pull out a little length and take my scissors and just go on an acrylic, the end of an acrylic block, and just fill up the edges of the acrylic block with small pieces of Scotch tape. And I'll show you in a minute. After I do this, it expedites the iris folding process. Okay, now each of these swirl type sections has a letter. So we've got A, and then D, B, C, E, and then A again. So, and they all have different patterns in them to help kind of guide you to remember what paper you're going to be using. So this one's all solid, this one's all thick stripes, this one's all blank, dot, and thin stripe. So I find the patterns to be more helpful in as my guide. So what I do is I just write on a sticky note the pattern of paper. I number 1 through 5, and for example I have brown dot, and then I have and then I put solid, and then for number 2 I have pink, and then I put thick stripe. So I have that on a note just to help me remember the order of operations. So it doesn't really matter too much which section you start with, as long as you start with the outside and work your way on in. So I'm going to go ahead and start with this solid part. Take my brown dot, and you want to have the fold along these lines here. So I have a long strip here, like I told you, and I'm just going to measure out, looks like I just need about an inch. So I'm just going to cut an inch off, place it against my patterned, against my template, and then take a piece of pre-cut tape and simply tape each side down. And that's the basic gist of it. The iris folding technique is like 80% prep work and 20% execution. So it's a tedious process, but it ends up looking really cool. So my next color here is pink, and that goes along with these thick stripes. So here we go. Just gonna go on the very outermost one. There's a tiny bit showing here. So really short piece. And the long strips help me to waste less paper as well. Now for the tiniest ones, if I want to use less tape, I can always cut this in half and use pieces separately. Alright, so it's going to take a little while for me to complete this. So I'm going to go ahead and come back when I'm almost done. Alright, so now I am almost done with my iris, and I just have to cover the center, and you can just take a piece of paper and one bigger than this, tape it over the center, and so that's what I'm going to do. So when I'm done assembling all of my pieces, and I recommend checking periodically the front side to make sure your design looks like it should, I like to take a piece of packaging tape, just clear tape, and to seal it all the little pieces in, I just cover the design with the tape like this. So that ensures that none of my pieces will loosen up or shift. Now for the moment of truth, flip it over, and there you have your folded iris design. Okay, so here's a better look at the front of my card. Now on the template, there's a shape for the roof and the base. And I've gone ahead and cut those out of my tan suede paper. So I have the roof and the base. Now you could space it out a bit from the house, or you could put it directly on. I think that looks a little better. So I can go ahead and glue those on, and then I'm gonna work with my stamp. So with the stamp, I've done 2 owls. One is green, one is purple, so I did DG2 and LV1 with the Spectrum Noir pens. And when you're stamping, just make sure to use the brown Memento ink and your colors won't blend, or they won't smear, excuse me. I also forgot to mention that I stamped it on this ivory dot paper from the Kindred Spirits paper pack. And I chopped off the little branch that he's hanging out on. I just trimmed that off. So I've got a little guy and a little girl owl, and they're gonna go on my birdhouse, something like that. And now I'm gonna go ahead and embellish my card with the Kindred Spirits embellies and the pink jewel dazzles. And I'll come back when it's finished. So I just wanted to show you the back of my card. Look how messy and gross it looks. But when you flip it over, here is the finished product. So I simply have to glue this onto the front of my card and I am done. So just a little overview. I have the Hoot Hoot Hooray stamped on that ivory dot paper. I just cut a rectangle and then just a V shape here. Matted it on brown and then added little strips of the pink dazzle material. So I just used my ruler and a knife to cut thin strips. And that's what I used to frame my card here. Now for the scallop border, what I did was I used a thin strip of the pink and then I cut half circles of these large circles and just placed them all along the line. And so I framed the whole card with the thin strips of dazzles just to add a little touch of sparkle. The embellies were used here on the house, here at the bottom as well. The 2 owls are up on foam tape to make them pop a little more, and then I made just a little stand with more of that tan suede paper. And that's it. Thanks for watching this week's episode of Simply Ann. If you enjoyed this card and want to make it, stay tuned for today's savings bundle. In today's bundle we have the Hoot Hoot cute little owl stamp set, and this comes with 4 different stamps. We have the owl, 2 little hearts, and Hoot Hoot Hooray, which is really cute. We also have the 540 pink jewel dazzles, as well as on the package you're getting some project ideas and ways to use them on the back. We have the Kindred Spirits embellies pack. Here's a close look at them. There are 28 pieces, 28 brads, and then some of them have paper embellishments around them, so you can actually mix and match your brads to your embellishments if you wish. And these little tags are great for stamping as well. Here's a project idea on the back again. Next we have the Teresa's Pentagon iris folding template. It has all the instructions to make several different shapes with this pentagon pattern. And here we have all the different shapes. We've got the flower, star, and house, and then there are some other matching shapes as well. Then we of course have the tan suede paper. This is going to be 8.5 by 11, really soft, nice tan, rich brown color. And then the Kindred Spirits paper pack. Now unfortunately I don't have a whole pack to show you. I have most of mine intact, but here's a close-up of all the sheets you'll be getting. It is double-sided. So let's take another look at the papers. So the front sheet, which is usually the most elaborate, mine has been cut off already, but it has a really pretty corner. As you can see, there's this really pretty corner on this scrapbook page, and that's what the whole sheet looks like. And then I'll just show you the back is a green all over pattern. We have a green and pink floral pattern. On the back, a sort of mauve tone, tan all over border, with another shade of pink. This one has tiny diamonds on it with little pink, purple, and green and white accents. On the back, an ivory dot. Brown, tiny floral with cute pink flowers. And another shade of pink. There's lots of pink in this pack. And then this really pretty multi-stripe paper that includes all of the colors that all the other papers have. On the back of that is a dark brown dot. And those are all the sheets in the paper pack. Now you'll get 2 of each design, of course. So with that, thank you guys so much for watching this week, and I will see you again next week with another fun project.